Khanna, KHANNA.house.gov, his website. You can tweet him at Rep. Ro Khanna. Congressman, you're still with us?
I am.
Okay, great. Let's pick up some phone calls here. Andrew in Columbus, Ohio, listening on WGRN. You're on the air with Congressman Connor.
Hi, Tom and Congressman. My first name is Andrew, and I'm a distant relative of Eugene Stoner, who designed the AR-15. I never met him. Our family never had any contact with his family. But everything I've read indicated, of course, he never had any intention for the private citizenry to get a hold of his weapon, which he was designing for the military. So that said, my creative idea, when we do pass laws to ban AR-15s, there are going to be some people who simply won't sell them back to the government. And what I think we should do is require them to store them at special ranges, which would create new businesses, and then the weapons would have to be stored there, and that's the only place they could be shot, at these special ranges. And I think that's a creative idea that might make this go down a little easier.
I think that's the way it is with fully automatic Thompsons and Uzis right now, isn't it?
That I don't know, sir.
Okay. Congressman, I have shot fully automatic weapons in ranges, and I know that they were owned by the ranges. But anyhow, Congressman.
Well, Andrew, I've read the same thing about the founder of AR-15, that he never intended for them to be used by civilians. And of course, as you know, until 2004, they were banned under the assault weapons ban. Now, AR-15 has become one of the most popular weapons after the assault weapons ban expired, and has been responsible not just for this shooting, but the shooting in Orlando and a number of other mass shootings. So laws make a difference. When the assault weapons ban was there, you didn't have the use of AR-15s. When we repealed it, we've seen their use. And I think you make an excellent suggestion that they should be used perhaps at specialized ranges, and people can return them there, or even the government could compensate them if they have them. But there is absolutely no reason for this to be still legal. And President Obama tried at the end of his term to outlaw AR-15s. In fact, they had a White House petition, and they said that the fastest signatures they got to 100,000 was when they posted something about banning AR-15s.
Wow. Jared in Downington, Pennsylvania. You're on the air with Congressman Ro Khanna.
Hello, Tom, and hello, Congressman Ro Khanna. First, I want to say that if you're going to disarm civilians of guns, you must also disarm the U.S. government as well. The reason,
Jared, you don't really believe that the founders who fought a foreign country thought that everybody should have guns in order to fight their own government. There is absolutely no evidence of that anywhere in the debates in 1787 from the Constitutional Convention.
No. I didn't say that. I'm just saying that it's not a coincidence that we have all these imperialist wars overseas, that we're giving arms to Saudi Arabia and all these other dictators, and then it comes back, as Jeremiah Wright said, the chickens are finally coming home to roost. And it's not a coincidence that we're seeing all these shootings in the United States, as we are a literal culture of death.
Okay. Congressman, your thoughts?
Well, look, I think we have to stand up for more human rights in our foreign policy. And, of course, the weapons we're supplying to the Saudis that they're using to inflict civilian casualties in Yemen is awful. And Bernie Sanders and myself and Mark Pocan, a number of others, have been calling on Congress to stop refueling Saudi planes, stop assisting the Saudis in the carnage in Yemen. And I think that that's a separate issue from making sure that Americans here are safe at home. And I think that, again, and I'm Tom, it seems like you've had a lot of experience as a gun owner. There are a lot of gun owners who are very responsible citizens. This is something cultural for them. They've had guns passed down their families for generations. And the question is, how do they continue to do that in a way that doesn't pose a risk to civilians? I mean, they've got kids in school, too. I'm sure they're horrified too by what happened. And my hope is that they would come and say, look, no one is asking them to give up their guns. What we're saying is come to some common ground and reasonable solution, so you don't have a 18-year-old, 19-year-old who's talking about killing people having access to military-like weapons.
Amen. Gregory in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, listening to WRRD. You're on the air, Gregory.
Thank you. It's great to hear from California. I love their attitude and Colorado's attitude about marijuana. But I'm here. I'm very impressed by the congressman's grasp of history. So on that subject, I want to talk about the Teddy Roosevelt era, when Teddy Roosevelt wanted to run as a progressive, but he knew he couldn't win as a progressive, so he stayed in the Republican Party and won the presidency. And then he found out from the newspapers, the fourth branch of government, that the big corporations, John D. Rockefeller and the meat packers and the railroads, are ripping off the voters, and he became a trust buster. And then he turned back into a Republican and an imperialist and a warmonger, and so we got, presidents who had their good points and their bad points.
So, Gregory, what's your question for the Congressman Khanna?
My question is, how do we get rid of the guy who let the swamp dwellers into the administration of the White House?
You're talking about how to replace Donald Trump?
And Paul Ryan.
Yeah. Okay.
A great shame. I'm from Ryan's state and Ron Johnson's state.
Okay. Thank you, Gregory.
Right. Well, to your point on history, I'll just reference that Teddy Roosevelt is trust busting. We could use a little bit more of that today. And Keith Ellison and I founded the Antitrust Caucus. One of the biggest challenges today is the concentration of economic power in the hands of pharmaceuticals and banks and large corporations that are preventing small communities from having their own economic destiny. And I think that this should be part of the Democratic platform. In terms of the corruption in the White House and the free market absolutism of someone like Paul Ryan, the sad thing, in my view, is not just that it's immoral or lacking compassion. These are not the policies that built America or made us an economic success. I mean, the thing about America is we were never have been an ideological country. Going all the way back to Hamilton, talked about governments need to invest in industry and invest in and Eisenhower, of course, invested in infrastructure. Lincoln invested in the land grants in colleges. And so Paul Ryan, I mean, the Ayn Rand free market absolutism is not going to make us a competitive country. It's going to actually be, it's exactly the wrong recipe if you care about America's economic success. And so I think we have to remind people about what made America the economic engine it is and how do we get back to those basics.
Charles in Nitro, West Virginia. You are on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Yeah, Congressman, a little off subject. I'm a disabled veteran, and in the original Trump budget, those of us who are 60 to 100% disabled are going to see our compensations drop from $35,000 to $13,000, which would be absolutely devastating. I want to know if you've heard anything or if it's still in the budget.
Well, first, thank you, sir, for your service. And it is the sad part of the president. I mean, he talks about these military parades to honor our troops. A far better way of honoring our troops would be to make sure that they have the proper and deserved compensation from the government, given the sacrifice they have made. And that's not just making sure we don't have cuts of the type that the president has proposed in his budget, but also investing in apprenticeships and job training and providing them with opportunities in the civilian sector. Now, just to give you some hope, I think the president's budget is so draconian that there are even reasonable Republicans here, some reasonable Republicans who won't go along with it. So you're not just going to have Democrats opposing some of the cuts that the president has proposed. You will have some Republicans as well, and I'm hopeful that you won't see those kind of cuts that the president has proposed.
Okay. David in Mahoney City, Pennsylvania. David, we have a minute to the break. A quick one for Congressman Khanna.
Hey, Congressman, how about instead of banning the rifles, how about banning the ammunition instead? that way it's not violating anybody's rights, I don't think, right? And the problem, pretty much, you can't buy the boat, you can't fire the gun.
Is this about banning the ammunition and the mag?
Yeah, we did that with cop killer bullets. Or we did that for a while, didn't we?
Yeah, and you know, I mean, I think we should look at those types of ammunition and then the rounds. I mean, there is a number of legislation. Some of it, by the way, even Republicans agree on, that you don't need these magazine clips that have more than 10 rounds, or frankly, I think more than 7 rounds. You don't need that to hunt. I mean, I don't hunt. I don't make a pretense of doing that, but I know a lot of people who do. And when I talk to them, they don't need more than 6-7 shots to go hunt deer or hunt animals. So this idea that you need these magazine clips with rounds more than 7 or 10 is crazy, and I think that may be common ground where we could find basic regulation.
That would be marvelous. Congressman Ro Khanna with us, taking your calls for the hour. You can find his website at Khanna, KHANNA.house.gov. You can tweet him at Rep. Ro Khanna.